I saw some comments today and I thought I'd quickly address them in a short video. But my real question is, does it set owner function need to be called from server RPC or not? And I found that it does. It does need to be called from a server RPC. I have this setup, right? In the player controller, I have a trace. So it's calling this in if interact trace, which is just a trace from the actor's viewpoint, which is the camera, getting the forward vector using the get rotation X vector. We're not going to focus on this too much, but all that's doing is just setting a last hovered actor. And this is just calling this interface. I have one interface set up, which is just the BPI interact, which has an S for the server interact and client interact. Now, I was going to use this just for the interactable actors, but then I decided, no, actually I could use this for the controller as well, the player controller. So you can see here, implemented interfaces, BPI interact. Then I have when this receives an interact call, so every time the player clicks the left mouse button or E, it does this. It says, do I have a hovered actor? Okay, so I have a hovered actor. I'm going to do a client call. So this is a client call because it's coming from the input, which is client input side, which is on the client side, the input. Then it's calling this. Then, because I also like to have the option of client call and server call, you don't have to set both these up on an actor, but this is really handy, okay, because you don't have to mess around with set owner. You can do a lot with just having the client option or the server option, okay. So to give the option, yeah, I've gone, do you have a 480 already? If you have a 480 already, so you're the server, you can just call S interact. But if you're not the server, then I'm going to pass in the target, which is the last hovered actor, and the player controller reference, which is just self, into here and pass that along into the interface. So it gets the correct information, but it's on an interact call. This is possible in the player controller, but no other class. It's a special class because the client owns the player controller. So then this is called on, so I made a test actor. I've got both of these interface calls set up, as you can see, for client and server interact. As I said, yeah, so this does need to be called on the server. So this is a basic setup demo where it changes the material to a white material, no, a red material and a white material. If I don't have this call on the server interact set in the owner, and I have on the client interact a S interact to call the multicast, so everyone can see this code. By the way, for this to work, yes, you need to go to the replication section and set tick replicates. So on the server, I come up, nothing happens. I'm clicking, you can hear me clicking, nothing happens. I come up on the that was the client. I come up on the server, and it is changing for both players here, as you can see. How can I get this to work? You might add. If you have to do the set owner stuff, it has to come from the server. And the only issue with this setup is, right, I'll show you now, it's calling the S interact from the client interact here. Client walks up, I can see it, I click it. It does nothing, right? I click it again, now it changes. Now you might ask, why is that happening? Well, what I think is happening, if I can probably confirm my hypothesis right now, is if you look at the flow, so it's going to come in here, and it's going to call C interact, right? Then it's going to call the server one, and the server one is for setting the owner. So if we wanted this to work, then possibly this current situation will be fixed by doing this, by flipping them around so that the client call is actually called afterwards, after the server has already set the ownership of this actor, right? Okay, that still did. Maybe I still had to click then. If I look, right, it's setting the owner. Okay, it's doing that first now, but it's still not enough time because I think, for example, on the client, it's doing a server RPC. So you can't really, especially depending on the pin, you can't rely on a server RPC to be done in like a frame, for example. So a quick fix would be is valid. If it's valid and it equals if the owner equals this, then if it doesn't, then it can do this loop. So they can both just loop back like this. It doesn't look very tidy, but you can understand what that's doing there. So yeah, I could probably make this shorter too, or even a frame. So if you do 0, 0, that's a frame, right? It's gonna loop. This could loop indefinitely, and it could cause a leak. That's very bad. But I'm just quickly showing you an example, right? So that got rid of me needing to double click. The best solution would not to use set owner here. The best solution would be get rid of set owner and just call mInteract from the sInteract call from the player controller, because technically it's the server calling it. It's not the client trying to call it, and it's not the client trying to call it from the actor to the server either. So this will work. And I hope that video is helpful, and I hope it answered those guys' questions.